Please welcome our next session, Rethinking Synthetic Data, the catalyst for unlocking real insights.
Hi everybody, I'm Doug from Yabble, and who cares about the name of my presentation? It doesn't matter. So I work for an AI company, so I get to spend all of my time thinking about AI, talking about AI to agencies and global brands. And I'm here today to talk to you about context. So context is essential for AI to understand what we're asking it to do, and it's similarly essential for us to have the right context to understand what AI is doing or what we're asking it to do and what it can do. So two things. One, I want to make sure that your context is sufficiently broad to be able to understand what's happening with AI about all the things we're talking about this morning, regardless of whether they're happening in your individual context, and to put forward the case that the ultimate arbiter of the value and the success of synthetic data is not us. It's not research companies, it's not panel companies, it's not fraud detection companies. It's the people who are writing the checks. It's the brands, it's the global brands who are commissioning the research, who are looking for insights. So that's what today is about. So it's important to start from a context perspective. I've pulled some old quotes on purpose because this is still a prevailing context in the minds of most of us who don't work in AI or have limited experience or some experience, or we've gotten a salsa recipe on ChatGPT and we think we know what we're talking about, right? So what we think is, yeah, can AI count things better than me? Sure. Can it summarize things faster than I can? Sure. Calculators can do that. I've been using Excel for a while, so it's a new tool, but it can't create insights. It's going to hallucinate. It's going to make things up. And so what we do is our minds are fettered by all these fears and superstitions which unconsciously blind us to objective reality, to what's actually happening outside of our circumstances. And we spend a lot of our time being negative, proving what can't work and won't work in the light of our own circumstances. And when you start talking to anyone about using AI or AI techniques or AI-powered personas or synthetic data, whatever you want to call it, instantly people proffer I can't talk to fake people. How are you going to create a fake me, right? How is that believable, right? How could even if you could, and it looks like me and it sounds like me or it sounds like the cohort that I'm used to talking to, how can I trust it, right? LLMs make things up. I tried to do it and I didn't get a good result. And you're right, that's a terrible way to do it. I don't think that's a good idea. Right? So I want to be really clear. What I am not talking about today is synthetic completes. I need 500 completes from my survey and I have 450, so I'll fill in 50 of them synthetically. I personally don't think that's a very good idea. I don't have an opinion on it that I'm going to expound on, but we create survey instruments to extract information from people. AI isn't a person. It seems odd that you'd want it to fill out your survey for you, but you can make it do that, and you can make the data say a lot of different things, but I am not here to talk about that today. What I am here to talk about today is the one thing that every single global brand has in common, actually every company I've ever come across, no matter the industry, no matter the maturity, the one thing that they have in common, all of them are sitting on huge, vast amounts of data that is largely disaggregated and goes unused. It sits in databases, it's in SharePoint directories, it's in different global repositories, commissioning research, buying research. So this is data that's trusted. It was curated, it was paid for, it was reported on, it served a purpose, and then it gets stored somewhere, and it goes to die, right? That's what happens. And big data, a long time ago, promised us that it was going to be easy to connect all of that. Won't it be great when we can talk to all of our data? Won't that be awesome? But why didn't it happen, right? Is it because there isn't enough data? No. It's because the tech wasn't there to do it. It was still hard. It was painful. It was expensive. It took a long time. It took a lot of people. It was not easy to do it. So the technology that was necessary to take all of this disaggregated data in its original format, in its original language, without doing anything to it, now exists so that you can operate on it. And what this requires is a fundamental shift in our belief systems, which is why this isn't happening more quickly and more readily. Because We think in terms of, I have a question about a product or a change or something I want to do. I need to understandably talk to people, get that information, and figure out what's being said in whatever way I do that. But the premise is, what if we are able to talk to all of the data that we already trust, that we've already paid for, that we've already curated, that we already have, and we can glean insights from it beyond what it was originally intended to tell us, right? And that is, to me, what I'm here to talk about. That's what synthetic data is. It isn't fake people. It isn't fake completes. It isn't the 999th respondent in your n equals 1,000. It's talking to your data. It's creating personas from the data that you already know and already trust to be able to have conversations and get insights from it. So, when you think about this, what do you do when you evaluate it? When you think about transportation, I use this as a way for people to understand it. If you have to go from New York to California, you could walk there, you could drive there, you could fly there. There are different modes of transportation. If you set aside the time coefficient, there are just different ways of getting places. One uses your feet, ostensibly, most of the time. One uses wheels, one uses wings, and they have different methods and different physics. But what if you introduce a teleportation machine into it? Also a transportation device, gets you from one place to another. Again, set aside the time and the efficiency. If you go and you look at that teleporter and you go back to your boss and you say, it didn't have shoes, and it didn't have any wings, and it didn't have wheels, so there's no way it can work. It's because you're using the wrong evaluative criteria. You have to use a different set of criteria, and you have to accept that there is a way to evaluate this new method of transportation that's different from the way that you're evaluating the ones that you're using now. And that is the way that I think it's important to consider synthetic data. It isn't just new people in surveys. It isn't fake people. It's a new way of gaining insight from data that exists in the world already. So here's an example, right? When I first started 2 years ago, started explaining to brands that we were going to use these AI-powered techniques to be able to create these, people who you could talk to you, this is what they see, right? So I asked the Google machine for the most complicated actual ad it could find. This is the one it came up with. It's sort of little, big, medium red dune buggies and spray painting and 18, steps. And basically everyone goes, this is shenanigans, I don't believe it, and they shut you down. And they stop listening, right? Because they think, this is crap. You're just going to create something and there's no way I can be able to believe it. But when I talk to them about what I've just been telling you, which is, do you have a lot of data that you wish you could talk to? Yeah. Like data that you already own, wouldn't it be great if you could have a conversation with it? This is what they see. Oh yeah, that sounds really great. I can do that. Can you do that for me? Can you help me do that? Yes, I can. Let's try it. It takes about 30 minutes. So instead of taking a year of running your brand tracker in parallel to switch panel companies so that there's nothing that can ever change and there's no new noise, instead of that long, expensive process, you invest an hour or a day and you're able to falsify, replicate, test, and evaluate this new solution so it feels simple and everybody wants to get in the sandbox and play. And when you think about this, 30%, again, this is pulled from a lot of different places, 30% of the time, people are wasting their time trying to come up with the right answers. And 20% of the time, they know they have the data, but they can't find it, right? 75% of the time, they can't make good use of it. Half of the time, they're going with their gut. And 2/3 of people admitted that they've commissioned market research that they didn't end up using because it took too long or things moved too fast in the market or they didn't know what to do with it. So they paid for it and they shelved it and they didn't do a thing with it. And I'm also told, yeah, okay, if you're going to change something, but market researchers move slowly. By the way, it looks like he's giving you the finger. He isn't. But I just thought it was funny, so I left it. He's doing this, right? Market researchers move really slowly. They're not going to accept change as if it's some axiomatic thing. And that's fine. It's because we like to evaluate things and we like to make sure things are true before we accept them. So you take what we use, statistical sampling took 60 to 80 years from when it was first put out there till it was broadly accepted as fact. And 60 years for flying and 50 to 60 years for computing becoming ubiquitous. AI moves way faster. So conservatively, 32 times faster, right? So 2020, before ChatGPT exploded all over the world, models came out that could make it look like Will Smith was eating pasta out of the side of his face, and everyone laughed and said, this is garbage, it'll never work. A few years later, synthetic data, synthetic results and insights come out that are at parity with real world examples, right? Which means that something that used to take 20 years now takes 7.5 months. And if you do the math, it's 60 years, it's about 3. And I think that's conservative with the pace of AI. And the reason that this is going to impact all of us is because of agent models. You're going to start to hear a lot about agent models. And I'm not going to read this slide, but for simplicity, you're used to working with software. Even really good software has predefined routes that it follows to be able to take your commands and make it real. If you ask it to do something it doesn't know how to do, it does nothing. It says, fail, I can't do it. Agent models are autonomous. You can tell them, I want you to do something. You can give them a task. They will then set a goal for themselves. They will figure out how to do it. They'll go and do it. They'll test their own results. And then they'll come back and they'll give you the answer. And they can work collectively. So you can have specialized agents to do different things who can then work together, and then they can give you information. So you as the person are hyper accelerated in terms of the ability of what you're able to accomplish. And then I'm asked, all right, well, fine, this is all great, but have you actually done real stuff, right? Have you done real projects? Yes, this is a few examples. There's 100 more. I have a campaign I want to test. I have messaging and I want to test the ads. I have new concepts that I want to test. There's things that are happening in the market. My competitor may be doing things. I want to proactively get ahead of it. I'm making some changes. I'm reformulating my beverage, or I'm changing my packaging, or I want to look at different promotional, collaborations that I'm doing. You do those projects with data that exists, that is largely sitting on shelves, and you can accurately predict and replicate real-world examples, right? So, all right, Doug, you can do this stuff, or you've done this stuff, but is it right? And what we're finding from real-world testing, so not just guessing or not hoping that ChatGPT got it right, comparing it to something that happened in the real world and doing something with synthetic data, we're finding it's about 90% right. Does that work for every use case? No. Can it replicate every study? No. Is it really good for certain kinds and certain types? Yes. And it's 80 to 90% faster, and 20% is actually inflated. It's more like 5 to 10%. So something that cost 100 grand is more like 5 to 10. But then how do I know that it's real? How am I going to report this and tell my boss this new result that happened in a day instead of in a month and believe it, right? Is it just making it up? Right? And there's a real way to do this. You can take AI personas and you can recreate them a number of times, and you can tie them to where they came from with 100% visibility. You can ask them the same thing over a long period of time. You can then use things like the Aries framework, which is an automated regression testing system, or distance to closest record, or cosine similarity, things that are accepted, right? Things that have rigor, where you're comparing the individual elements from a real-world case to what's been produced by the AI. And you can then say, is this good enough, right? So this isn't guesswork. This is real-world. I am building something that I'm going to talk to that works. But what are they? What is an AI persona? You probably know this as segmentation. We do it now. We do a project, and we collect data, and we create segments of our customers or our buyers or whatever we're segmenting. It's based on real data, but we're doing that with AI, except they're digital representations. And instead of just using a segmentation study as the input, you're using vastly more. All of your research reports, all of your desk research, your brand tracking, your qual, your IDIs, everything you want to bring to bear, you can bring that all together. And suddenly you have a dynamic, adaptive, living segmentation that evolves over time. The more you talk to the segments, the more information they retrieve, the smarter they get. They retain the context from everything they were built on, and you can now infuse new information, which means when things happen in the real world that your segments are blind to, your AI personas aren't, because they can go out and retrieve that information and blend that in and expand and enrich their context. So you can build someone like an Avery. And by the way, you can go from ridiculously handsome or beautiful and dial it down with some prompts. It's been a problem for us too. But those are the minutia of making this work. But this isn't just demographic. You take 585 pieces of data, right? 10 to 15,000 pages, and you create a set of global attributes from it. And from there, you federate personas to cluster and represent those attributes, and you get something like an Avery. And then you infuse them with personality, with goals and pain points and motivations so that they can react to novel concepts, to things that don't exist, to something for which there isn't data. They can give you an informed opinion, and they can tell you why they have that opinion. So does this mean it's the end of research or the end of panels or the end of sampling? No. Of course not. But it does mean that it's a new companion. It means there's a new sequencing conversation. I have 20 concepts. I have the budget to test 5. Instead of meeting with my colleagues and picking those 5, I synthetically test 20 of them and pick them. Or I know what I want to go to market with, and I do differential positioning with my personas. Or something new has happened in the market. I ask them a question. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do research. It doesn't mean I'm making $20 million decisions, but it does mean I'm moving at the speed of thought. It's a companion, not a competitor. And in closing, the question is, are you spending your time proving that AI doesn't work? Are you waiting to see what is going to happen? Are you hoping that you're prepared? Or are you starting to understand how when those spending patterns change, how is that going to impact your business model? Are you adapting? And you're not being replaced, but the brands who ultimately commission the research that powers most of is sort of the reason for our companies, now have a superpower where they can talk to their own data. They can recapture that 20, 30, 50, 66% that I talked about and do a lot of it themselves. They're still going to need us. They're still going to need you. But you have to understand that even if you're on the right track and you're doing something with AI, if you stand there long enough, you're going to get hit by the train. And AI moves 1,000 times faster than we do. So if you let your competitors move 1,000 times faster than you have to ask yourself how long you're going to still be competitively relevant. So in closing, make sure that your context is broad enough, that you're looking at what's happening, even if it doesn't totally make sense in the way that you're doing things now, so that you're not shocked by what's coming. Thank you for your time.